Hi, I'm Chuck Colson with this week's 2-Minute Warning. Do you have the courage of your convictions? Let's say you're a Christian parent at a school board meeting. The school board's discussing the new sex education curriculum for middle schoolers. It includes instructions on condom use, encourages kids to experiment with sex, and teaches them that homosexuality is natural and healthy. The school board invites comments. It's clear the audience is in favor of the curriculum. So what do? Would you have the courage of your convictions to stand up and say that such a curriculum would be bad for preteens? Could you explain why, even as the boos and hisses and cries of bigot cascade from all sides of the meeting room? What kind of courage does it take to stand up to make your beliefs known publicly, no matter the consequences? Well, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the German theologian murdered by the Nazis, called this civic courage. Bonhoeffer identified the lack of civic courage and the collapse of ethics as being the downfall of Germany. The German people, one of the most educated, industrious peoples on earth, silently succumbed to the Nazis and thus participated in that regime's crimes. This is why some philosophers have called courage the greatest of the 4 cardinal virtues. That's because your convictions and principles are worthless if you don't have the courage to live them out. Mind you, Bonhoeffer knew the price he would pay. He was executed by Hitler 3 days before the war ended. Another prophetic voice for civic courage was the great Soviet dissident Alexander Solzhenitsyn, well-known author, Nobel laureate, survivor of the Soviet Gulag. When he gave his classic speech at Harvard in 1978, he shocked the crowd by decrying the lack of civic courage in the West. And that lack of courage, he said, was leading to the West's decline. He was prophetic. Read it. We provided a link for you here at colsoncenter.org. I read it once a year for inspiration. And this New Year is a good time for you to read it as well. Heaven knows we've got many examples in American history of people having the courage to live out their convictions. Martin Luther King Jr., the women's suffrage movement, the abolitionists, or the signers of the Declaration of Independence. Civic courage simply means the willingness to stand up for what you know to be right, not being cowed by the mob around you. It requires getting rid of fear, which is the enemy of faith. It is being willing to speak and act according to your conscience. Now that's what nearly 500,000 Americans have done by signing the Manhattan Declaration. They're saying they'll publicly defend the sanctity of human life, the institution of marriage, and freedom of religion. And last month, as you probably know, another 50,000 spoke out on Manhattan Declaration's behalf when Apple caved into gay rights activists and pulled the Manhattan Declaration app out of its iPhone App Store. If you haven't signed the Manhattan Declaration, do so today and get your friends to do the same thing. Signing it is just one way you can express your civic courage. You can express it with friends and coworkers when you discuss important issues. We shouldn't clam up and avoid the hot topics. We need to lovingly and winsomely explain why we believe what we believe. But never, never be afraid to speak out. I'm Chuck Colson. That's this week's 2-Minute Warning.